The silver ship Starhawk cut through the blue clouds of planet Xerion. Captain Ray Carter sat in the pilot's seat, eyes scanning the strange alien city below. Tall crystal towers shone in the sunlight, and wide streets curved like rivers of glass. From above, it looked beautiful, but Ray had been in enough strange worlds to know beauty could hide danger. He landed in the central square, where hundreds of aliens had gathered. They were tall, with skin like polished stone, and eyes that glowed faint green. Their clothes shimmered like water under sunlight. The air smelled of spices and something sharp. Like metal, Ray stepped out, wearing his standard black exploration suit. He raised his hand in greeting. Captain Ray Carter, representing the United Earth Alliance. Some aliens nodded politely, but most did not smile. The crowd was too quiet, too still. It felt more like a funeral than a welcome. In the middle of the square stood a high stone altar. Chains of silver glimmered in the light. And there, chained to the altar, was a young alien woman. Her hair was silver white, falling past her shoulders, and her eyes glowed bright blue. Her face was calm, but there was something in her gaze. Fear she was trying to hide. Ray frowned, stepping closer. "What's going on here?" he asked, but no one answered. Drums began to beat, slow and heavy, echoing in the square. The ground seemed to vibrate with every beat. An alien in gold armor stepped forward, tall and stern. His voice carried across the crowd. "It is the day of the offering, when we feed the Vorgoth, guardian of our world." Ray's brows drew together. "Feed? The what?" "The Vorgoth," the armored alien repeated. "It comes from the jungle to take the chosen one, as it has for 1,000 cycles." Ray looked back at the girl. "She's the chosen one?" The armored alien gave a short nod. "She is blessed to join the Guardian, blessed." Ray thought it looked a lot more like she was about to be eaten. He scanned the crowd. No one looked shocked. No one tried to help her. It was clear. They believed this was right. But everything in Ray's gut told him it was wrong. A soft voice reached him. An old alien woman stood nearby, leaning on a carved staff. Her voice was low so others wouldn't hear. "Do not interfere, human," she said. "It is our way, and those who stand against it die." Ray's jaw tightened. He'd seen traditions before, some harmless, some cruel, and this one. This one felt like murder dressed as religion. The drums grew louder, faster. From the far side of the square, a massive stone gate began to open. Darkness poured out, along with a sound that made the hair on Ray's arms rise, a deep, echoing roar. The crowd began to chant in a strange, rolling language. The girl on the altar closed her eyes, her lips moving in silent words. Maybe a prayer, maybe a goodbye. Ray's heart pounded. He could leave now, walk back into his ship, and no one would stop him. It wasn't his fight, wasn't his planet, wasn't his law. But then her eyes opened, and for a moment, they locked on his. There was no begging in her gaze, no cry for help, only quiet courage, and somehow that made his decision for him. The roar came again, louder. Shadows shifted inside the gate. The ground shook as something huge began to move. Ray stepped forward. The alien leader turned sharply. "Stand back, human, or you will share her fate." Ray kept walking. "I don't share fates," he said coldly. "I make my own." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The chanting faltered. The drums stopped. Only the heavy, slow footsteps of the monster filled the air. Ray rested his hand on his blaster, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the gate. Whatever came out of there, it was going to find him standing in its way. The gate yawned wide, spilling shadows across the square. A cold wind swept in, carrying the smell of damp earth and something rotten. Ray's boots scraped against the stone as he moved closer to the altar. Every alien eye followed him, some wide with fear, others hard with anger. The alien leader raised his gold staff, his voice sharp. "Human, step back now. This is not your fight." Ray didn't slow. "Maybe not my fight," he said, "but it's my choice." The drums started again. Faster now, the chanting returned, louder, almost desperate. It was as if the crowd was trying to drown him out. Ray's hand brushed against the cold chain binding the alien girl. She looked up at him, her voice trembling but firm. "They will kill you." "Please go." Ray shook his head. "I've been in worse places," he whispered. A small, shocked laugh escaped her lips, the first hint of warmth in this frozen ceremony. The air shifted, heavy. A shape moved inside the gate, huge, slow, and powerful. The sound of claws scratching stone echoed like metal tearing. Gasps ran through the crowd. Ray's grip tightened on his blaster. The alien elder who had warned him earlier stepped forward, her staff shaking. "Human, you do not understand. The Vorgoth is not just a beast," she said. "It is our protector, our god, our punishment for the unworthy." Ray glanced at her. "Then maybe your god needs to be fired." The words hit the crowd like a stone thrown in still water. Some shouted in rage, others fell silent. The leader's face darkened. "You insult our gods," he said, voice low with fury. "You bring shame to your own kind." Ray took one last step, now standing between the girl and the monster's path. "I'll take that risk," he said. He felt the girl's chains vibrate, not from fear, but from the ground trembling under something's approach. And then, the Vorgoth stepped into the light. It was worse than Ray expected. Its body was covered in black, armor-like scales, its head low and wide, with jaws that could crush steel. 4 burning eyes scanned the square, but locked instantly on the girl. Its breath was a hot, foul wind. A deep growl rumbled from its chest. The leader raised his staff, shouting in his language. The beast roared, answering the call. It began to move forward, muscles rippling under its skin. Ray didn't wait for it to reach the altar. He drew his blaster, aiming low. A bolt of blue light shot into the ground in front of the beast, throwing up dust and shards of stone. The Vorgoth stopped for a second. Snarling, the crowd screamed, not in fear of the beast, but in shock at the human who dared fire during the sacred ritual. The leader pointed at Ray. "Seize him," he shouted. Dozens of alien guards moved, their weapons glowing. But Ray kept his aim steady on the monster. "Try it," he warned. The girl's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone stand like this against both the Vorgoth and the Council. The girl's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone stand like this against both the Vorgoth and the Council. Beast's growl rose to a deafening roar. It crouched, ready to pounce. Ray took a step forward, placing himself directly between its path and the altar. The alien leader's voice shook with fury. "You have just chosen death, human." Ray's jaw set. "No," he said quietly. "I've chosen life hers." The Vorgoth stepped fully into the light. The crowd fell silent, their chants dying in their throats. It was bigger than any creature Ray had seen outside a war zone. Its body was a mountain of muscle and dark scales, each plate edged like a blade. 4 glowing eyes glared with hunger and hate. Every slow breath from its nostrils came with a hiss, as if steam poured from some furnace inside it. The alien girl flinched when the beast's gaze locked on her. The chains rattled, and Ray could feel the fear in the air, like electricity. But the Vorgoth didn't rush. It took slow, deliberate steps. Its claws scraped grooves into the stone floor. It was savoring the moment. It knew no one here would dare stop it. No one except Ray. He stood still, blaster in hand, feet set wide. The creature tilted its massive head, studying him. It had probably never seen prey step forward instead of back. From somewhere in the crowd, a child's voice called out in their language. A warning, a plea. Ray didn't turn. He kept his eyes on the beast. Predators liked weakness, and he wasn't going to show any. The leader raised his staff high. "Vorgoth, take the offering," he commanded. The beast's muscles tensed, its body lowering into a hunter's crouch. The sound of claws on stone grew sharper, faster. Every alien in the square backed away, except the guards, who were now circling Ray like a tightening noose. Ray spoke without looking at them. "You step closer. You'll get caught in the crossfire." His voice was calm, but inside, His pulse was hammering. The Vorgoth's growl deepened, the sound vibrating through Ray's chest. Then, without warning, the monster lunged. Its speed was shocking for its size, a black blur of muscle and claws. Ray rolled aside just as its jaws snapped shut where he'd been standing. The impact cracked the altar's edge, sending shards flying. The alien girl gasped, twisting against her chains. Ray came up on one knee, firing a bright shot into the beast's side. The smell of scorched scale filled the air, but the Vorgoth barely flinched. It turned its head toward him. Now fully focused on the human who dared to fight back, the crowd erupted into shouts. Some cheering for the beast, others shouting in confusion. Guards raised their weapons, but none dared fire. They knew if they missed, the shot might hit their sacred creature. The Vorgoth took another step toward Ray, slow and deliberate this time. Its 4 eyes glowed brighter. Ray's finger hovered over the trigger. He wasn't sure if one blaster was enough to kill this thing, but he knew one thing. If he stood still, they'd both be dead. The alien girl shouted something in her language, her voice sharp, urgent. Ray didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Move. The beast lunged again. Ray dove, firing at its face this time. One bolt grazed an eye, and the Vorgoth roared in pain, shaking its head. The sound rattled Ray's bones. He used the moment to sprint toward the altar. His only thought clear in his mind: break the chains, get the girl out, survive the next 30 seconds. Ray hit the altar steps 2 at a time. The alien girl's eyes widened, half with hope, half with disbelief. The Vorgoth roared behind him, a roar so loud it felt like the air itself shook. He didn't look back. Looking back was for people who wanted to die. The chains around her wrists were thick, silver, and pulsing faintly with energy. They weren't just metal. They were alive in some strange way. Ray pulled his laser knife from his belt. The blade hissed as it lit, glowing blue. One swipe, and sparks flew. The chain sizzled but didn't break. The Vorgoth's claws scraped the stone floor right behind him. The beast swiped, missing Ray by inches. The force of the swing cracked a piece of the altar clean off. The girl cried out, not from pain, but from fear for him. Ray spun, firing his blaster at the beast's head. The shot hit, forcing the Vorgoth to blink and step back for just a heartbeat. A heartbeat was all he needed. He slashed the second chain, sparks lighting up the girl's silver hair. One more strike. The chain snapped, falling to the ground with a sharp clang. Move. He barked, grabbing her arm. They leapt off the altar just as the Vorgoth lunged. Its jaws clamped down on the empty stone where they had been. The sound of teeth on rock echoed like thunder. They hit the ground running, but the beast was faster than Ray had hoped or feared. It crashed through the altar in a spray of stone and dust. The shockwave nearly threw them off their feet. Ray shoved the girl ahead. Keep going. Don't stop. She didn't argue. They darted through the crowd, which split like water before them. Some aliens tried to block their path, shouting in rage. Ray's blaster barked a warning shot into the ground, and they backed off. The Vorgoth leapt over the crowd, landing in front of them with a ground-shaking thud. Its head lowered, eyes locked on them both now. Ray's mind raced. He couldn't outrun it. He couldn't kill it with one blaster, but maybe he could blind it. He aimed at its nearest eye and fired. The bolt hit home. The Vorgoth screamed, a sound like steel tearing apart, and staggered. Clawing at its own face, Ray grabbed the girl's hand again, pulling her toward the narrow gap between 2 crystal towers. They dove into the shadows just as the beast slammed into the buildings. Shaking the ground again, they ran through twisting alleys lit only by the glow of strange plants. Behind them, the Vorgoth's roar grew fainter but no less dangerous. It wasn't giving up. It was hunting now. Ray glanced at the girl. Her face was pale but determined. She was keeping up, even barefoot on the sharp stones. Finally, they reached a wide, dark opening, the mouth of a tunnel leading into the jungle beyond. Ray didn't stop to think. They plunged into the darkness. The sounds of the city faded behind them. replaced by the whisper of leaves and the distant calls of unseen creatures. Ray slowed, listening. For now, the Vorgoth wasn't following, but he knew that wouldn't last. The girl leaned against the tunnel wall, breathing hard. "You saved me," she said in halting English. Ray gave a short nod. "Not done yet." He said, "First, we survive the night." The tunnel spat them out into a world that looked alive. Tall trees twisted upward like giant snakes frozen in mid-strike. Leaves the size of sails swayed in a wind that smelled of wet soil and something sweet. Blue fireflies drifted between the branches, their glow painting strange patterns on the ground. Ray's boots sank into soft moss. The alien girl's bare feet made no sound. Somewhere behind them, faint but steady, came the deep rumble of the Vorgoth's growl. It hadn't stopped. It had only slowed, like a predator toying with prey. Ray scanned the jungle for a path. "Which way?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "This jungle. It moves," she said softly. He didn't know if she meant it in a poetic way or a literal one. Either way, he didn't like it. They moved fast but careful. Every step was a gamble. Some plants shifted when touched. Others snapped shut. Like jaws, from above, glowing birds watched them, their eyes bright as lanterns. A chorus of alien sounds rose around them, clicking, humming, a distant scream that echoed through the trees. Ray kept his blaster ready. The girl pointed to a narrow trail lined with silver flowers. "They hide scent," she whispered. He didn't ask how she knew. He just followed. For a few minutes, it almost felt like they had a lead. Then the ground trembled. Leaves shivered, and a deep, wet sniffing sound rolled through the air. Ray froze, pulling the girl close to a tree as thick as a house. Through the gaps in the leaves, he saw movement, black scales sliding between the trees. The Vorgoth was close, its 4 eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Ray's mind raced. Fighting it here was suicide. Running in the open would make them easy prey. He looked up. The branches above were strong, thick, and tangled. "Climb," he whispered. The girl hesitated only a second before nodding. They scrambled upward. Ray's muscles burned, his hands slick with sweat. Below them, the Vorgoth's head pushed through the undergrowth, sniffing the ground. It stopped right where they had been standing seconds ago. Its claws dug into the soil, tearing deep trenches. Ray held his breath. The beast tilted its head, one glowing eye scanning the canopy. For a moment, Ray was sure it could see them. Then, a rustling in the distance drew its attention. It turned, moving toward the sound with slow, deliberate steps. They waited until its shape faded into the deeper jungle. Ray exhaled quietly. "That was close," he muttered. The girl glanced at him. "You still have chance to run alone," she said, her voice low. Ray shook his head. "Not my style," he replied. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. They climbed down and began moving again. The trail grew narrower, the jungle darker. Somewhere ahead, a faint blue light glimmered. The girl pointed. "Safe place," she said. Ray didn't know if safe meant the same thing here as it did on Earth. But with the Vorgoth behind them, any light in the darkness was worth the risk. Asterisk. The blue light grew brighter as they walked. It came from a pool in the middle of a clearing. The water glowed from within, casting soft ripples of light on the trees. Strange white flowers floated on the surface, their petals opening and closing like they were breathing. Ray scanned the area. No movement. No sound of the Vorgoth. Just the quiet hum of the jungle. It felt peaceful, but he kept his blaster ready. The girl knelt by the water, cupping her hands to drink. Ray stayed standing, watching the tree line. After a few sips, she looked at him. "You risk life for me," she said slowly, her voice still. Careful with English, Ray shrugged. "I couldn't just stand there." Her eyes searched his face. "In my world, no one fights the ritual," she said. "They believe Vorgoth protects us. Even if it kills some." Ray frowned. "Where I come from, we protect the innocent. We don't feed them to monsters." She tilted her head. "You are strange." "Human," she said, but there was no insult in her tone. "Maybe that's why I'm still alive," Ray replied with a small grin. For the first time she smiled. A real smile. Warm and almost shy, Ray sat beside her, his shoulders relaxing. "For the first time since the square, what's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Leora." It rolled softly off her tongue. Ray repeated it, and she nodded with approval. They sat in silence for a while. Fireflies drifted over the glowing water. The jungle seemed far away here, like they were in a hidden pocket of another world. But the peace didn't last. A distant crack of wood echoed through the trees. Ray stiffened, hand on his blaster. Leora's smile faded. "Vorgeth," she whispered. Ray stood, scanning the shadows. "If it finds us, this pool won't help," he said. Leora rose to her feet. "There is one place, deep in ruins, where even Vorgeth will not go," Ray nodded. "Then we head there." They turned toward a narrow path lit by the glow of the pool. Before leaving, Leora touched Ray's arm. "You are not like them," she said softly. Ray glanced at her. "Good," he said, "because I'm not trying to be." And together, they stepped back into the dark. The glow of the water faded behind them, but the bond between them, forged in fear, courage, and defiance, was now as bright as any. Light in the jungle. The alien council chamber was a cathedral of crystal and shadow. Tall windows poured sunlight onto the floor, but the air was heavy with judgment. Ray walked in with Leora beside him. Gasps rose from the crowd, not just because she was alive, but because she walked freely, unchained. The leader in gold armor stood at the center. His eyes narrowed at Ray. "You return with the offering," he said, his voice cold. "You dare walk here after defying our gods?" Ray didn't stop until he stood a few steps from him. "I didn't come here to worship your gods," he said. "I came to save a life." The crowd murmured, some angry, some curious. Leora stepped forward, her voice steady. "Listen to me," she called out. "The Vorgeth is not our protector, it is our prison." She told them what she had seen in the jungle. How the beast hunted for sport. How it had nearly killed them both. The leader slammed his staff against the floor. "Tradition keeps our people safe," he shouted. Ray's voice cut through the chamber. "Safe? You call feeding your own people to a monster safety?" He looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. "On my world, we fight for the innocent, even when it's hard, even when it costs us." Silence followed, heavy and long. Then one elder stepped forward, lowering his head. "Perhaps the human speaks truth," he said. Another followed, then another. The tension in the room shifted, not gone, but cracking. The leader's gaze moved from Ray to Leora. "You would end the offering?" he asked her. Leora lifted her chin. "Yes, and if that means defying you, so be it." For a moment, Ray thought the leader would order their deaths, but instead, the staff lowered. "Then let the gods be silent," he said bitterly. "The ritual ends." A wave of shock moved through the chamber. Some cheered, others whispered in fear. But for Ray, the only sound that mattered was Leora's quiet breath beside him. Outside, the city square was filled with light. Children ran freely, no altar in sight. Leora looked up at Ray. "You have changed my world," she said softly. Ray smiled faintly. "Guess I'm making a habit of that." She reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. For a long moment, they just stood there. The noise of the city faded in that quiet. They weren't a human and an alien, just two people who had fought side by side in one. Above them, the twin moons of Zirian rose. Their light wrapped around the city like a promise, and somewhere in that glow, a new story began, one of courage, freedom, and a bond that no ritual could ever break.